Hey everyone, welcome back to Slightly Dogmatic. We're here, as always, your co-hosts Jameson and Dan, talking about media we like and maybe other stuff, but primarily media we like. This week I think it was a quiet week for both of us. You know, we're both fully vaccinated now, working on the 2 weeks following to become fully immune. So, Dan, you got yours, was it now yesterday?
I got mine yesterday, so
Yeah.
I feel a little tired, but not
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah, I got mine a week ago now, almost a week and a half ago, and yeah, I felt sore afterwards, but nothing particularly bad. I got Pfizer. You got Moderna, right?
No, I got Pfizer.
You got Pfizer too. Okay, so yeah, we didn't have a particularly bad reaction to Pfizer. Moderna, I hear, tends to hit you a little bit harder. Apparently, there's more mRNA in the Moderna one, so that can mess you up a little bit more. But yeah, if you're not vaccinated, do it. If you're young like us, look it up, because I think most places now in the country, you can try to start finding appointments wherever you can to get vaccinated. It's important, you know, you want to be safe. For us, a big motivator is being able to go back to the movies, being able to travel, going out to eat. Those are all things we love. So we're really looking forward to that. Go get vaccinated. It's really not a big deal. A lot of places, there's places here, you know, if you're in LA, there's a place called Kedron Health, which is in the downtown area. And that I'm pretty sure there's walk-ups now for anyone of any age. So just show up. You know, if you are an employee somewhere that qualifies you, also you can bring that info. But I don't even think you need that anymore. So yeah, just go do that. I'm super anxious to go back to the movies. I don't even, the problem is there's not a ton playing right now. But
Yeah, I was gonna really say, yeah, I'm anxious too, and then I realize there's nothing to watch.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was talking last night to the guys. We were playing Warzone, and I was like, guys, April 21st, which is the day that I'll, according to, you know, all the information that we have, my full immunity will have kicked in. I'm like, we gotta go to the movies if you're up for it. And Ananto was like, who may be on the podcast in the future, is like, oh, what are we gonna see? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. To go to the movies, we have to pick something to watch. And I was like, I guess Godzilla or Godzilla vs. Kong, or maybe the Snyder Cut. You know,
Damn, you would watch that twice?
Justice is Great edition. No, I wouldn't. I was joking.
Okay.
No shot. But I was kidding around and being like, I was saying that, you know, it is a really great value for the money you pay for a ticket versus how much media you get in exchange. Like the cost to time watched ratio is pretty good in comparison to a normal movie. Getting twice as much movie for the same price. But just the experience, I think, is going to be big. Hopefully they announce when, like, Dune and The Kingsman and Time to Die and all these other movies that I was excited to see in theaters are coming out. Oh, you know what? They're still. I guess they like did like a refreshed release of Tenet. So
Whoa.
I'm gonna watch that for a third time and not understand everything and have it be a confusing mess. We haven't talked about that on here yet either, actually.
I'm clamoring to watch that again.
But yeah, we should watch it. We should watch it again, and then, like, that way we can be all fresh with it in our mind, and then record an episode, and that can be like one of our. We're gonna try and record in-person episodes together once we're able to be in the same place.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I guess one thing I thought would be worth talking about. You know, there's a long lead up here to getting into our topics, but first and foremost, I think it's most relevant to you, and it was very relevant to me for you know, God, the first couple months of this year and the last couple months of last year, trying to buy a new game console and or graphics card. So I'm very lucky. I have a PS5. I managed to get one purely by luck. But Dan, you're still on the hunt for the elusive 3080, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you got a PS5 pretty. I mean, I guess you did have to put an effort, but you were able to get it. And I would guess it wasn't too long that you had to, like, try to camp out and find, not camp out, but
yeah, I never camped out.
Stalk,
on principle,
like, the browser and, like, find it.
It was a couple months.
Oh, months. Okay, that's longer than I thought, actually.
Yeah, I was basically trying since it came out.
Yeah.
November, and I finally got one in late December. It came in like early January.
Yeah, like I'm not like as I didn't feel the need as much to get it, and you got it because, like, your grandpa wanted it. Because I feel like there aren't that many games that I want to play right now. I mean, there's Demon Souls, which I really want to play.
Resident Evil 8's definitely gonna look better on next gen consoles too.
You think, than PC?
Well, I guess, but I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of a 50-50 shot at this point getting a graphics card.
Oh yeah, I mean yeah.
But the demo looked really good on the PS5.
Yeah, so the PS5 for me, I can wait, but the 3080 and maybe even a 3090, I am in fucking. I'm in a desperate state.
It's hell, dude. Right? It's like limbo.
I want to desperately upgrade my computer because I haven't done that in. I'm gonna say it's 8 years now. 8 years since I first built my entire build. I've upgraded the graphics card like 2015 or something, whenever the 970 came out. But I don't know. The reason I want to buy a new graphics card is so I can play Nier Replicant when that comes out in a few weeks.
That's coming out on PS4 though too. You could also just get it on PS4.
That's true, but I guess because I got the new.
We'll play on PS5.
I guess because I got the new 4K monitor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of excited to play that since Nier Automata it might be my favorite game ever. So
yeah, we're about due to talk about that.
Yeah, we can talk about that too.
But yeah, I just think it's like, I don't know. So like, what's your routine? Do you have like that stock tracker stuff up all the time now? And do you you're on Discord servers, right? Telegram.
Yeah. So my routine is I have 2 Discord servers up on my desktop pretty much at all times when I'm like on the computer on my second screen. And then I'll get like notifications, but I also have Telegram installed on my phone, and those kind of send like messages to like a stock alert whenever I have it for 3080 and 90. So whenever those are in stock at like B&H Video or Best Buy or Amazon, I'll get like a message. But what usually happens is I get a message saying that Amazon restocks. I click it literally within 5 seconds of getting the message, and then I add it to my cart, and then Amazon says there's nothing to add because it's sold out, basically.
Yeah.
I have gotten it in my cart twice, and then when I go to check out, it says it's no longer available because Amazon doesn't do mass drops where Best Buy does like mass drops where they'll have like a bunch of GPUs like available for sale, but Amazon literally drops maybe like 1 or 2 cards for each listing at a time. So it's impossible if you're doing it manually without a bot to buy that. It's literally impossible. Where I don't know, we're talking about vaccines before. It's easier to get a vaccine in America than it is to get a console or a graphics card. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah, that I don't know if you maybe saw it before, but that originally came from a tweet by Cosmonaut Variety Hour Marcus. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of absurd, and it's a multifaceted thing. Prior to me learning about like news about chip shortages and stuff, I was sure that like it was funny because like my dad was following along too with this stuff, and he like broadly follows tech stuff too, but he was like pissed about it because he's like, oh, this is messed up. You know, this isn't how, you know, they should be conducting themselves. They're creating artificial scarcity. He still has like I don't want to make light of PTSD, but he remembers very clearly. So I'm not going to say it. He remembers very clearly the experience of trying to get me a Wii in like 2006, which was a similar process of it being a total shortage and just it being a matter of luck if you can come up on it. My dog's scratching again in the room. I'll be right back. I'm gonna let him in real quick, and then hopefully he'll be quiet. 1 sec. You gotta be a dick like that? Come in here, be quiet. Hey, lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Stay. Be quiet. Okay. He's in here now. Hopefully he'll just chill out. He's an old man. He should vibe. But yeah, 2006 when I was like, oh man, I need to get a Wii, and just the at that point, you know, online console sales weren't really the primary way they are now. Especially, and obviously there wasn't a global pandemic keeping you from looking in person or anything. So that was just really a matter of like any GameStop we were around, anytime we were near one, just walking like, hey, you got any Wiis? And usually being like, oh, we just sold our last one, like, you know, 10
I'm a little more lenient on the Wiis because I guess the GameCube and the GameCube got beat the fuck down by the
Yeah.
PS2 that generation. So I don't know if they anticipated like there to be like strong demand for that.
I don't know. I think Nintendo does. I think they played into it somewhat. Like there, because the scarcity did bump the hype for that. I think there's some strategy involved. I don't think that there also isn't like the overarching like how do I phrase it? Like overarching like situational issues that there are now with apparently like chip shortages and just the fact that like there just literally aren't enough chips being produced. Electronics are dependent on rare earth metals that are exclusive to some smaller developing nations that we then have to exploit to try and get a hold of, like lithium in Bolivia, and such. Obviously, this was all still a factor back then, but it's shortages and stuff are much more of a immediate factor now. I think Nintendo probably played into it somewhat. I mean, the PS5, I don't know. The PS5, I just feel like there's ways to handle it, even if there are shortages that are straightforward. And, they should be able to do this with cards too. I feel like it should just be a matter of signing up and, like, if they really need you to, putting down a deposit of, whatever, like 10% of the cost of the card and saying that, like, just when it's available, I want it, just send me it when it's ready. Like, here's my card info, charge me when you finally have them in stock and ship it to me. And even if you have to wait like a month or something, at least it doesn't mean that you have to have this ongoing process, because I hated it. It was awful. And it was something that like that you don't have to engage in, but especially in time, we're lucky that we haven't been like terribly adversely affected by the pandemic. There's people who are in much worse conditions than us, but this is something that can potentially be like its own kind of bright spot in all of this for people who might have it worse off than us. And the fact that then that gets like totally undercut by having to like basically have it as like almost a job in and of itself to be ready at any moment to then hand over $500 to buy something. It's just it all is just kind of abrasive in by its very nature, and it just feels like there has to be better ways to handle this. But Best Buy, Target, Sony themselves don't really have a ton of motivation to make it easier on us, because they're getting the money regardless. They don't have a lot of motivation to keep scalpers from buying them all up, because one way or another they're getting the same amount of money whether it's a scalper buying it or a normal person buying it. And I think that's the big thing. It was primarily attributed to scalpers before like more recent stuff about chip shortages at least started to go more mainstream. I'm sure there were people who knew about it prior, but now it's really becoming clear because like it's affecting even car manufacturing. So I don't know. Scalpers suck too, but like it seems like a lot of major retailers either didn't have the infrastructure and knowledge to set up safeguards, or at least make it a little more difficult. Now the dogs are barking. Great. Hopefully it doesn't come up on here.
I can't hear it.
Okay. Yeah, Discord might be cutting it out though. We'll see. I'm gonna leave some dead silence here in case I need to cut it out. It's the manufacturers. These retailers do know that this stuff happens. So, but there's no extra steps taken. Like Best Buy kind of does stuff where it seems like they're kind of making it like a lottery system.
Oh, they're way better than some other places.
Yeah, like Target's awful and Amazon's awful about it.
Yeah,
those were two that I was like overly familiar with in the process of trying to buy a PS5. So, anyways, it sucks. It's terrible. I'm not sure what else I can say about it. I mean, it's just a terrible state to be in, just constantly having to be alert for it. It was exhausting. I was almost more excited to like not have to look for it anymore, rather than having the new console in my hands. Because you make a good point. Like there aren't a ton of things out right now that are like super compelling. They're like must plays. Like I think Demon's Souls is up there, but I think it's just overall as we've seen each generation that like it's less and less of a massive jump and more of like the little things. Now it's like every game has ray tracing in it now on PS5 basically, which is cool. It looks cool. It adds to the realism a lot, but it's not like the kind of thing you can show to your boomer parents and go, wait, is this video or is this a video game? And not being able to tell the difference.
So do you think it's worth, I guess, stocking all these sites right now for the selection that is available on the PS5? I'm guessing no.
I think I don't think it's like, I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't something that like like for some background, my grandpa is someone who really liked to stay up to date on this stuff. He liked to be on the cutting edge. It was something where like I personally, if I had been going to look for it just for myself, I was like, I'll just wait. Like I don't want to have to deal with. Like I remember there was the whole mess that was the pre-ordering process for them, and I didn't want to contend with that. Like if that was I was like, if this is any indication, I don't want to engage with this going forward. But my grandpa liked to keep up with that stuff. You know, he found out that they can play Blu-ray 4K Blu-rays, and he had a bunch, and he was like, oh, we can keep it in one room and then have the other 4K Blu-ray player that he got for like the majority of the cost of a PS5 that only plays 4K Blu-rays, and put that in another room or something. So he got sold on it, and he was like, oh yeah, get one. And then like a couple weeks into it, he's like, oh, why haven't you gotten one yet? And I was like, because they're being sold on immediately. He's like, oh, you're basically like, I wasn't trying hard enough. And I was like, trust me, I'm following it. I had the same routine as you, Dan. Basically, I had Zoolerts going, which is an alerts platform for stock. I was in the Discords. I was following the Twitter accounts, and it was just it was a mess. It was really really hard to find them, and I wouldn't have one now still if I didn't just get lucky. Like I got my PS5 on a day where where Best Buy was supposed to do a drop, and I was like, I thought this was it. I thought Best Buy was going to be it at that time, because I was like, okay, they're going to be doing their like slightly better system, and I'm just going to be really intent on it. I'm going to get up on time. It was annoying though too, because they do that thing where it's like, oh yeah, we'll do it sometime between like 9 a.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna drop them. It's like, oh great, so I have to be up at 6 a.m. Pacific time, my time, if I just in case they do it on the front end of that. Yep. And I was up, and of course they didn't actually go live until like 10 a.m. or something, and I sat there, and what they didn't specify ahead of time either was that they were only doing them for in-store pickup. They weren't shipping them at all. So it was a matter of trying to find a store that would let me pick up from there, and it was like this whack-a-mole of like trying to get a store and then being like, oh, it's out of stock here, and then trying to get another store and then it's out of stock there, and expanding the distance I was willing to drive. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll if I need to drive to Bakersfield, sure, I'll drive to Bakersfield. For reference, that's pretty far away from LA. But I was like, you know what, sure, I'll do that. That's not really a big deal. It can be like a whole expedition, whatever. And it was just a mess, and I was working on it for 45 minutes, and it's a slow dread of like starting off with confidence and be like, oh, I got it in my cart, because the process is you get into your cart and then you have to pick a store. Oh wait, or is it you pick a store then you get in your cart? Whatever. Anyways, at one point I had it in my cart. It didn't stay there for very long, but it's like this dread that creeps in, and you start and it gives you confidence initially. If you're like, oh, I got through. It's not loading infinitely. Oh, I picked a store that's awesome. Going into the cart, and then it slips away, and then you're like, okay, I just gotta start again. I gotta pick a different store. That'll do it, and then that doesn't work. And I don't want to be over dramatic about this, but it is something that like you can build up investment in anything. You spend enough time on it. And we both respectively spent a lot of time on it, and it really sucks. So I hope you get your card soon. For me, it was just pure luck. That day, I did not get it from Best Buy. However, Walmart had dropped later that day, and I was like, I'm not gonna get it from Walmart. Walmart's been really crappy to me in this so far. I've just gotten screwed over by them. And then just by chance, I tried it out, and I happened to get one. And it's literally the only thing I've bought personally from Walmart, maybe ever. I don't think I've ever bought anything else from Walmart myself. I try not to give them business, but this was something
hate Walmart.
I was like, no, Walmart sucks. Fuck the Walton family. They're awful. They mistreat their workers. They rely on public funds to supplement their substandard wages. They're one of the worst besides Amazon. But this is something where I was like, you know what? This one purchase isn't going to make a huge difference. I figure I rationalize it to myself. Ideally, I would have never given them my money. But it's something where I was like, okay, like in the grand scheme of things, this is like low impact. I'm not going to start shopping there or anything. I'm not opening a credit account with them or anything like that. And I got it. So it's pure luck. Keep it up. Don't get too invested. I mean, if you can stand to wait, I think, Miles Morales was a really cool experience on PS5. I'll say that. Like the complete lack of loading screens is pretty cool. It's just straight in. Even when you initially load up, which is typically like where a lot of like games that have minimal loading screens, at least in this last generation, that's typically how it works. Is that you basically front load everything, and then that way in game it's usually just like in cutscenes or other ways, or going through doorways or something. Like they hide the loading otherwise. This is just like and you don't even notice it. It feels so natural. Like it kind of just like fits in so natural with the flow of gameplay that you're like, oh, this is how it should be. And then you go and you look at PS4 gameplay of it, and it's like, oh, like, you know, when you go out of like a basement, you like, you know, you just zip through like a small window as Miles, and in this it's just a smooth transition through the window out, and you're back into Manhattan. In on the PS4 version, it's a loading screen. You have to sit there for like at least 30 seconds. So overall, it's kind of insane. So that's what's really cool. It's mostly just tech proving itself, you know. It improved my Cyberpunk playing experience significantly. You know, I got Cyberpunk on PS4, and it obviously, as everyone knows at this point, the original PS4 version was horrific. Not as bad as the Xbox One version, but still pretty bad. And the PS5 made it playable. I waited until I got my PS5, and it still crashed a lot. There's still a ton of bugs. The game is still not what it should have been, but it let me finish the game, at least my first playthrough. And now I'm gonna set it down now. I set it down now for the time being until they totally fix it. And, yeah. Anyways, I've been talking a lot. Dan, what are your thoughts on Nier Automata? Why do you love it so much? I've just finished it recently. You've played it before. Finished it.
I don't know. Well, you kind of went into it last time at the end. Mm-hmm. I guess we'll go straight into that. I don't know. I go back and forth on whether it's my favorite game of all time. Honestly,
that's very high praise.
Yeah, for me, it goes between that and Final Fantasy X.
Okay.
I don't know. Just everything about it, the gameplay. I don't know how long your game, like your playthrough was. I think I did like 60, 70 hours.
Well, for people who finished the game, they'll know why I can't go check it right now. But I think overall, I had 37 hours, and I did all, you know, I did A, B, C, and D endings. So
yeah. So I did A to Z.
Oh, so you did all of them?
I think I have literally everything possible done in that game.
Wow. Did you do all the endings that are... So basically, for those who don't know, there's endings that'll be like... There can be like pivotal moments in the story, and then if you like don't complete the objective, you get like an ending in and of itself. Like, oh, what if, you know, you actually... Your main character actually died here, and this is how the story ends, and then it resets back to it like a checkpoint, and then it moves on.
Yeah. I think I did everything possible in the game. I don't know. I'm like a huge sucker for that, like, you know, that like that hopelessness in like movies and like I don't know, just like different storytelling mediums of like that. I don't even know if I would call it a trope of like a character who has to do a really fucked up thing to someone that they're in a relationship with, not like relationship necessarily as in like boyfriend or girlfriend or something like that, but just like a personal attachment. Mm-hmm. And then like they're like almost like forced to do that against like their, I guess like against their will, I guess I would say. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily. And then this is kind of like an anime trope of like them doing, like having to do it over and over again, which I've seen in like different movies with like time travel involved.
Yo, actually, Dan here. Before you get further, I wanted to say like, okay, I think that we're just gonna go straight into talking about like details and potential spoilers and stuff. Yeah. So I think Dan and I would both recommend. I'm not a huge JRPG person typically. This is definitely an action RPG, and I really enjoyed it. This isn't like in my typical wheels. Like action games too, like games like Bayonetta and such, like other Platinum games. I haven't been massive on, but I really did enjoy my time with this. I think the world building and the aesthetic and the gameplay mechanics are really compelling. So if you have any interest in it, just play it. We would hate to spoil it for you. It's all really good. I mean, it's one of the few Japanese games where actually like the English voice acting is really good and not overly cringe. So
I didn't play it check in it out. English actually, so I should try that out.
Yeah, check in the description for this podcast. I'll put a time code for where you can skip to avoid spoilers and go on to whatever else we talk about after this. So fair warning, we're going to be getting into spoilers from here on out. No, I totally agree, Dan. Like I think that there's like this I don't know. I didn't know anything going into it. I didn't play Nier Replicant. I don't know how much Nier Replicant gives you insight into like what's going on in the game itself. But
I mean, do you want to know?
No, I want to play Nier Replicant.
It's not a big thing. It's not a big. Like they're not meant to be. They're not made to have to be played like like you're not meant to have to play Replicant, or I guess I should say the original Nier, to understand like Automata.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, is it like is that how you would know that actually humanity is really gone? Is actually completely dead? Like, is that would you know that if you played Replicant? Oh, so how does it work? So there's Nier and there's Nier Replicant, and then Nier Automata. So how does that like?
Yeah. So I guess this, I don't know. I like to think of Nier as like not exactly, but I guess a little bit similar to how Persona became like a series, where people kind of think of Persona as
It came from Shin Megami Tensei, right?
yeah, its own series. But I mean, at this point, Persona is more popular than Shin Megami.
Yeah.
But Shin Megami was like the original series, and then Persona is the spin-off series, which overtook it in popularity because it's more accessible. So Nier is kind of like that, in that the original series is called Drakengard, which is a PS2 series. I think 1 and 2 is on the PS2, and then I think there's a 3 and 4 on the PS3 and PS4. I haven't played those, but I do want to play those eventually. But Nier is, I don't even know if I would call it a spin-off, but it spawns from that series, the Drakengard series. And I mean, we're in spoiler talk, so Drakengard takes place like thousands of years before the like Nier does.
Okay.
And so it's kind of cool how you see, I haven't played it, but I know the story of it, where you see like the far-reaching effects of the events in Drakengard, how that causes the events of the original Nier, and then what happens in the original Nier pretty much causes it's like the reason why the world is the way it is in Automata or Automata.
So is Nier Replicant the sequel to the first Nier, or is Nier
no
like an updated version of the first Nier?
Yeah, Replicant's it's just like a remaster / remake. It's kind of funny.
Are they both on PS3?
Oh well, yeah. So that's the thing. There's a Nier and then there's a Nier Replicant, right? So it's kind of weird because they are the exact same game, literally the exact same game, aside from the main character that you control, and that was like a America versus Asia kind of decision.
Oh, so they updated it for like the American market?
Yeah, so like Nier is the main character, the relationship between you and like the main character and the primary female character that you're going on this journey for is, it's like a father-daughter.
Okay.
But in the Japanese version, which I think is Replicant, that's brother-sister. And I think they changed it because I guess they just thought the American audience would identify more strongly with a parent-child relationship.
So just Nier is like the Americanized version, and Nier Replicant is the Japanese version.
Oh, it's actually not called Replicant. It's called Nier Gestalt, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Replicant is the remake, I'm pretty sure.
I will say this is so typical of like, I don't know, for some reason, maybe just Japanese people per capita are smarter than Americans and can keep track of this shit better. But I swear, like, Japanese naming convention for media is like so much more confusing. It's like oh god, what else comes to mind is like the dot hack series. I've never even
I don't understand.
I've never even read them, but it's like / dot hack blah blah blah, and it's like, it's a super long name. And that's the same thing with like it feels like with Nier. It's like there's Nier and there's Nier. It's like the naming stuff with Final Fantasy when they were bringing it over to the U.S. back.
Okay, actually, I looked it up. I fucked up.
Okay.
So Nier, as we know it in America, just Nier is in Japan is Nier Gestalt.
Okay.
And then the Nier Replicant is the one with the brother sister, which is now being remade and coming out worldwide soon.
So they're whole separate games.
They're literally the same exact thing, besides
they just changed the main characters, like the player controlled characters.
Yeah, like the main character that you control.
Okay, that seems excessive, but okay.
Yeah, it was like I don't find it necessary because I mean I get like I guess they thought Americans wouldn't identify with the brother sister thing.
Hmm.
I don't think it was necessary, but I'm like, whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. It's I'm interested. Like I don't know. I guess going we got there's like a that was like a big divergence. But what I was trying to get at was just that this there is this undertone of something. I mean, obviously something cataclysmic happened, and you kind of feel right off the bat that like there's some sort of there's something misleading going on when it comes to the purpose of 2B and 9S, and like some like there's more to it. Like you get this, and it's probably not a good thing. I thought for a long time going in that like, oh, it's gonna turn out that like the machines are actually humans, and although
Westworld
and
or Westworld's the opposite actually.
But yeah, well, no, yeah, less about. I mean, it ended up being actually closer to Westworld in terms of like machines gaining consciousness and sentience, and them being, you know, equivalent essentially in terms of their capabilities as humans, and that being a lot of the kind of moral questioning throughout it of being like, yeah, you're killing these things just basically because of their outer appearance, but their inner capabilities are actually more or less equal to humans as far as you can tell, especially with characters like Pascal and stuff. And then later
Pascal.
revelations that, you know, actually turns out androids are just made from the internals of machines, so you're just killing your own people basically. All that stuff is like, I expected something like that. I expected it more to be like and maybe this is explained in like the previous Nier games, but like the kind of like smiley head things, like Emil's head that you find like inside the robots,
Yeah,
the cores. I was like, oh, that's gonna turn out there's like a human brain in there or something, and that you're actually killing off like, this is what's left of humanity. Like pulling a oh god, what was that Tom Cruise movie where it's like almost the exact same thing. Fuck, it's, oh my god, hold on, vamp for a second while I look this up. It's a sci-fi movie.
Minority Report?
No, it's more recent. It was like 2014 or something. Where Tom Cruise is basically like a ranger of some sort in like a seemingly post-apocalyptic.
Oh, Oblivion,
yeah. And you know, it's like, oh yeah, he's like, Earth's been destroyed by aliens, and you know, we're the last defenders, and all of humanity's gone except for us. And it turns out, oh, actually, humanity's alive on Earth, and Tom Cruise and his partner are actually like clones made by the aliens to oppress the surviving humans on Earth. And it's like, oh, so I kind of expected something like this, but like ultimately I think it ended up having really interesting questions about like humanity and stuff, and kind of it's sort of like the I think there's discussion at some point of like the little floating droids of like the self-destructive nature. It's like about like self-destructive nature and like repeating itself, and then that becomes clear about like what's going on later.
I feel like the game had a lot to say about like human nature in a way that most games don't.
Yeah.
I feel like the game kind of throws shit at like nihilists, to be honest.
Yeah.
Where it's like they're like these characters that are, I guess, nihilistic, which would be like Adam and Eve almost. I guess like even like 2B is on the verge at certain points of the game of being like, what's the point of all this?
Yeah, exactly.
Like none of this matters. I'm just stuck here, basically
being
killing,
having to kill the person that she feels attached to.
Yeah, and like I think that is like an easy trap to like fall into, like in real life, almost. If you dealing with like some type of like depression, I've definitely met people like that.
Yeah, actively participating in this cycle of self-destructive actions that are like you actively know are having a very soundly negative impact on you, but you keep participating in it anyways.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of like philosophical like references. I don't know if like some of them are in the side quests, but there's like one, I think like Pascal's like reading like books by like Nietzsche.
Yeah, Nietzsche. I feel like Nietzsche comes up a couple times, and it's kind of like, wow, this guy guy really hated life, huh?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, what's the point? Yeah, and I think that the way that like machines in it express their humanity is like really interesting. There, actually, a lot of it is less, and I think this Nier does a really good job of expressing its themes not through super produced cutscenes, but through gameplay and expressing those ideas through gameplay. Like I feel like for one, when I realized that, it's almost one of those things where I imagine in my head playing other games. I'm like, oh, it would be really cool. Like for example, enemies aren't actually by default aggro to you, and they will only attack you if you start attacking them first. But it relies on your instincts at playing video games to just by default say, oh, those are enemies, I'm gonna go kill them, and then at some point giving you a realization of, oh, what have I been doing this whole time? And they actually do that in this game. There's you start off doing that, and then you start to realize, oh, if I just like run up to them, they don't really care, they'll just kind of ignore you. It isn't until way later in the game when they start to like be taken over by that virus that they actually become by default aggro to you. And so that I thought was really cool. The realization like, oh yeah, no, I like, especially when you go to the amusement park for the first time, and you can choose to fight them, or you can just walk straight through and just chat with them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, oh, hey, how's it going? I don't know, I think it's really cool to play with your expectations, and then I think that's a really effective way to challenge the player in their preconceptions of how a game has to be played. And then I think I'm going to connect to The Last of Us Part 2, and a lot of people claim that like The Last of Us Part 2 guilts you for the violence that you commit as the player and like is preached to you. I disagree. I think that people are it's being really reductive, and it's being purposefully obtuse around the delivery of that message. But maybe one day we'll get into a detail. But basically, I do think that similar to that, the same way that The Last of Us Part 2 put you in the position where you play as Abby and you have to fight Ellie, and that feeling of like, oh, like I really don't want to do this, like this, like, and it really was something where it's like I kind of just want to set the controller down and then just not play this out, because I had this feeling of just dread throughout the entire game for The Last of Us Part 2, honestly, but in particular in this moment where I was like, I don't want to see how this turns out, because I don't want to see either of these characters get killed. And I think being challenged in that way is something very unusual, and Nier Automata is one of the other few games that I can think of that's actually done that, where I'm like, oh, I kind of feel bad because I was just wailing on these dudes with like my super anime weapons, and I didn't need to be doing that. They're all pretty much innocent, and them enabling you as well in other parts of the game to like accidentally murk robots that aren't hostile, like when you're in the process of fighting hostile ones, and just letting you have collateral damage and have to just deal with that. And like, oh well, that was a character I did a side mission for and I accidentally just killed them. Great. Like, yeah,
that's a good way of saying it. Like the feeling of like dread and like the hesitation of taking certain actions like in a game. Which is kind of how I feel about this. Is a much worse series, but Life is Strange. Much worse game than Nier, but still I enjoy it a lot.
I still like to check it out. The writing was tough for me and for you to get into.
It's a little cringe.
Like that's the thing that,
but it does a good job of like pandering to like your emotions. Where I guess you could argue that's like cheap, but I enjoyed it still, regardless.
Right.
Yeah, but it's like
well, because
like,
time travel is a factor in it, right? Where like so know what could happen. And I'm guessing at some point, if I had to guess, me just having experienced a lot of media, having been taken through a lot of different stories, I feel like there's going to be at some point where your ability to turn back time, you have that ability, but you can't change what happens, and they kind of make you sit with that, where you try to stop something awful that happens, and the game kind of like the game lets you try, but then you're kind of faced with the reality of, oh no, this isn't changing, this has to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of those kinds of moments in that series. I won't spoil it for you, but
I think that's cool. I think strategically disempowering the player, taking like giving you a power fantasy and then taking away, when they've actually built up stakes around it, can be very effective. And it can be more than just like like Metroid Prime or a lot of Metroid games where you start off with all your powers from the last game, and then in the first 30 minutes something happens and you lose all of them, and it's like, oh, guess I gotta collect them again. That's also disempowering the player, but it's kind of just like, oh, I get it. Like, this is like a necessity for starting a new game again,
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it can be used for like actually personally affecting the player. And what I think is cool about Nier is also that I feel like I'm hyper conscious of that kind of thing now, and I like that it kind of played to that. It kind of played to how hyper conscious I was of the game, and it like kind of rewarded me for like being overly aware of how game systems work and stuff. And I feel like a lot of times it can be a disadvantage if games kind of want to just play it off and act as though no one can see like no one can read between the lines, and no one can see the man behind the curtain, metaphorically. And I kind of like that this game actually, it is kind of a game, and it's so cringy, but it's like kind of a game for people who are like, who've played a lot of games in their life, and it kind of plays into your expectations and subverts them in a really interesting way. It's something where it took me a long time to play through it. I think I mentioned this last episode. It took me like,
was it a year?
Yeah, and it wasn't like I wasn't particularly put off or anything by any particular part of it. It's just something that, like, this is just kind of the pace I took things at.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I was probably like starting to lose some interest and confidence in the story. But at the end, it really comes back around, and I think it really effectively tells the story. The only thing, okay, so I've been giving a lot of praise so far.
I know what I think I know what you're gonna criticize. So how do you feel about the two other playable characters?
Okay, yeah. So,
9S, bring it up. Come on, shit on him.
No. I want to, like, I think it's really cool that they say, okay, you beat the game once, play through it again as your sidekick character, switch roles, and it totally changes your combat style. I think that is very cool conceptually.
Did you like that?
In this,
some people I know, I've heard of complaints that his gameplay takes away like from the overall game, because I think it takes away like the secondary weapon or something like that.
Yeah, you can only have one melee weapon.
Yeah, so I've heard complaints about that.
It definitely makes combat more shallow, and I conceptually think it's really cool. In practice and execution, it wore on me a little bit, and I appreciate it. I think 9S's campaign overall is a little bit shorter than 2B's, because there's a certain part where I think that he's knocked out. I don't remember exactly. I feel like there's circumstances in the story that take him out of it, and you can kind of skip some of the extra stuff you do as 2B, which I think is good. I think it should have been shorter. I don't think there's enough variety, because, okay, so for reference, 2B and a later character that you play as, A2, they both play in like a traditional action RPG kind of way. Not even action RPG, just an action game basically, where it's mostly just about wailing on dudes and timing your dodges and counterattacking, utilizing like the rest of your kit, which is like special attacks and stuff, to try and, like, most quickly eliminate enemies. And so it's about what you'd expect from an action game. And then it puts you in 9S's shoes as a character, and he is just worthless at melee combat. Like, there's really like not much reason to use a melee weapon when it comes to him, because his main utility is hacking. And so you basically like throw a orb of energy at people to represent him hacking into the system, and then you play a little mini game that's basically like a twin stick shooter, bullet hell kind of arcade game, and you have to destroy like a core or something, and then that translates to damage from the enemy's health bar. And some enemies take more, like bosses take, you probably upwards of 10 hacking mini games to fully take down their health bar. It's something where, and that ties in because that also kind of emulates, there's regular bullet hell gameplay just in the chorus of it, where you'll jump into like a mech suit that's like also a jet, and it's so anime when you describe it like that, but that's what it is. It's like a transforming mech suit, and it becomes bullet hell in that way as well. And even like regular 3D gameplay, like I think that it's tackling a lot of different genres of gameplay, and it melds them together all pretty well. And there's elements of each genre in every other one, and I think in that way it blurs that line really well. And I think it deserves a lot of praise for that. But the bullet hell aspect is never as compelling to me. I'm not super into like arcade games that way. And the mini game for 9S really started, especially on the end. You finish his and 2B's campaign, and then you have a third campaign after that where you switch between 9S and A2. And man, at the end of that, I got really good at it for like those basic ones. I got pretty efficient at killing the little core things in the mini games. But oh my, you have to do it so many times over and over and over and over again. And sometimes there's a long a long set of gameplay in between checkpoints. There's no automatic auto saving. The way the saving is integrated into the game is kind of cool. You basically go and activate little points, and they have a radius around them in the game world within which you can then save based on like connection. It's like Wi-Fi signal basically that lets you save, and that's cool. But there are certain moments where it's like, yeah, you could play for like an hour and a half and then die and then lose that progress and then have to go back, which isn't great. A2 I think was really refreshing to go back to it, and I didn't want to play as 9S anymore once I started playing as A2 because A2 is back to like the 2B gameplay basically, except they add this mechanic of taunting, and it's cool how they seed this stuff. You get okay. I don't want to get too into the weeds of it, but there's basically like you can make minor modifications to your character and their stats. And what I like about this game in particular is that you don't have to spend that much time on that if you don't want to. Actually, you can fully play the game without going in and like customizing.
I feel like you don't have to do it at all. Yeah.
Yeah, like you probably don't have to upgrade your weapons all that much. You don't have to go in and customize the functionality of your character, but you can do things like even like remove HUD elements, so that if you don't feel like you need to see the health bar or the mini map, you can take that out, and that'll give you room to add other modifications that'll let you increase your defensive capabilities, make your dodges better, make your attacks do more damage, whatever, and that's cool. But they have little mods like that say, increases taunt damage or whatever, increases like taunt damage multiplier, and I'm like, I don't even think I've gotten that mechanic before. And prior to me playing 9S's campaign, I got a thing that said like, increases your hacking damage or increases the level of hacked enemies, and I'm like, I haven't done that yet. That's weird. Okay, maybe that's a mechanic that'll be introduced later. And it was just playing as a whole new character, which I think was cool. It's nice that they seed that stuff in the game world. But yeah, A2 basically, her gimmick is that she's like an old model and she has like a nuclear reactor or whatever that makes her a more efficient fighting machine, and she can go into like overdrive mode, basically do a lot more damage.
I forgot about that.
Has her health trained. Yeah,
is that the one where you can't heal, or like it drains
you
your
can't
health?
Heal. Yeah, it drains your health, but you can't heal. So that's another thing too, where like I got into this pattern of like, okay, well I'm fighting a really tough enemy. It's going to take a long time to chip away at his health, but I'm going to use my overdrive thing. It's going to double my damage, but it's going to make it so I'm more vulnerable because I think you do take more damage too while you're in that mode. You take more damage. You're constantly losing health. But if you're like, if you get into a good rhythm with it, you can go and you can use an item, boost your health back up to compensate for any drain and keep fighting. And they also add taunting, which you like click your flashlight basically at enemies, and it pisses them off and it makes it so that they do more damage to you and you do more damage to them. And so I think that introduced a cool dynamic into it, but you don't end up using it as much. And then it still forces you to play as 9S. You play as 9S for as much as you play as A2 in the final campaign, which I think is... I would have been okay if it was just A2. It's important for 9S's character, but I almost think it would be interesting to develop 9S without the player character playing as them, because it's kind of, I don't know. It's hard to explain without context of the story, but basically he's kind of going off the deep end. He's kind of losing it, and I think that there could be something compelling there. And it would also, I think they spent a lot of time designing and balancing A2's gameplay, and it kind of felt like a drag whenever I had to switch back to him, and like, oh great, I have to go do hacking again now instead of regular playing.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, what was your impression of it? Did the bullet hell stuff bug you as much? I've been talking a lot.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not big on bullet hell stuff. I was compelled by it in the game. I feel like it was kind of fitting, just like in the context of. I don't have like a super clear memory on how often or when they occurred, but my impression was like usually they would happen during like the boss battles against like the mechs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, those kind of strike me as like those moments in like Hollywood movies where it's done for like the sake of really big shit exploding and big robots fighting, which I didn't mind in this game at all. Usually I do mind that a lot in movies. But yeah, I wouldn't say like I hate bullet hell like games, like gameplay like that, but I found it super compelling in this game. Sure. Like people actually find there's like a difficulty where you only get hit like once and you die. And I don't know, on normal difficulties, I think the bullet hell stuff is like on the easier side.
I agree.
But like when you play on like the hardest difficulty, they say the hardest portion of the game is the opening, because the game starts off with one of those bullet hell sequences.
Yeah.
And it's almost like impossible to get through the beginning, because you just get hit once and you have to start the entire sequence all over again.
Jeez. Yeah. That sounds really punishing. I think that God, this is a good way to put it. I think that they did a really good job in Nier of, it might be so far actually kind of my platonic ideal for there being as much depth in a game as you want to engage with.
Like, what do you mean by that?
So I was talking about last time Final Fantasy VII Remake, and how it's a 30-hour game that I wish I could have spent 15 hours on, and that would have been the sweet spot for me. Like, I wish it didn't force me to engage with like all the repetitive gameplay mechanics, the repetitive story beats, and it just feels like, what would otherwise be really strong character writing just gets run into the ground, and you just end up being tired of hearing from them.
So you think it wasn't excessive?
I think in Nier, there's as much as you want to take from it, and I think that's really cool. You can play it as straightforward and simply as possible, or you can dig into it and min-max your character, and just become a total killing machine. You can go in and optimize your runs in each one to get every ending you need. Do all the side quests to get unique items. It feels like there's a ton there, but you're not necessarily missing out on it by not engaging with it, and I think that is really that's really cool. I think that, and it has. It probably took a ton of like balancing and consideration to figure out what the best primary parts were, and then it also, and then basically before let me finish this thought first before I get onto another one. Balancing those parts and saying like, yeah, this will still be a really great experience on its own if they don't do anything else.
Yeah, and
then I think it all the other content is just improves upon it without being mandatory, and I think that is just that's really cool. And I think the game does a really great job of having lore that is drip fed to you. You really don't get much, and even at the end when you get all this insight into like what the androids really are, the actual fate of humanity, who Adam and Eve really were, what the purpose of all of this is, there's still this overarching air of mystery to it, and I really like that. It gives this. It makes you feel like an alien on what is Earth, but it makes everything feel foreign and different. And I'm okay with it not being over-explained and having to say like, this is like, A, B, and C is what happened. Here's the exact timeline. Everything just feels out there and weird and surreal, and it is able to maintain that tone and be effective throughout. And I think that's unique for a game. I don't think that happens that often. It made everything feel like new and weird, and it made me feel like an outsider for the whole game, which I think is the point, and it's effective.
Yeah, I guess you're saying, like, compared to Final Fantasy VII, you think the side content in 7 was like tacked on for the sake of side content?
I think the main content was tacked on.
The main content, yeah, because they added it to the main game.
Yeah, everything's just totally overly drawn out, and like I said, there's repetition for the sake of it, and it really just feels like, oh, this needs to be a longer sequence so that our total runtime can be that of a quote unquote legitimate full game.
Game, yeah. So, I get you. Yeah.
That ended up going way longer. I don't think there's going to be a portion of this. The post-Nier. There isn't a post-Nier section of this. I don't know. I want to. If you end up replaying it again soon, because I know it's been a while for you, so that I think that's maybe why that this
I want to
felt
replay it
a little more heavily weighted towards me. Maybe once we can both play Replicant, or try to play it around the same time.
Yeah.
And give our thoughts on it and stuff. But it is totally unique. Like I wasn't so sure. There was a lot of praise about like, oh, the storytelling is so unique. Like the way that they convey this story is unlike any other game. And there's a lot of praise about that around Nier Automata when it came out in that regard. And then I wasn't so sure of it initially, especially finishing like 2B's first campaign and stuff. And I was like, it's cool. It feels kind of half baked, and it's just really unconventional overall. And getting the whole picture at the very end, I think makes it worthwhile. There's some stuff that feels like a little repetitious, but it's very self-aware as a game too. I feel like at the very end when you're going and you're destroying all of like the machine production facilities as 9S, and he's like going on his like murderous rampage. That felt like the most gamey. Like it all feels very gamey. Like it's all very like self-aware, like action game. But that in and of itself is like some of the most like gamey portion of the game, and it felt kind of repetitive. And I wasn't super excited to play that part, but it does kind of play into the overarching story and of like talking about like, you know, things being cyclical within this game world, and kind of working through those motions, and you know, like, you know, 9S going through the cycle of burning himself out every single time, and like, you know, it's about these characters eventually choosing to either, you know, engage with that cycle again or break it. I think it fits in thematically there, even though it feels kind of like, God, like I said, I told you at one point that I died while working on one of those, and then I realized that like I had lost like 45 minutes of progress. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go through and just do hacking over and over and over and over again. And so yeah, I think that wore me. I think that could have been rebalanced somehow, either by there being more variation in the hacking or giving 9S different but viable ways to engage in like normal melee combat. But I just like the game seemed to be communicating to me that like nothing is going to be as effective as hacking, so like that's my only option. And it's like it's also the way to resolve it quickly. Like if I want to get through quickly, it's like hacking is the fastest way to do it, but it's also like the least engaging part of the gameplay. So yeah. I feel I got better at it by the end. I don't know. I guess it might be good as like a training tool if you're into those kind of games, especially if you play on the harder difficulties, because of how repetitive it is. But overall, still really great. I don't know, based on your memory of it at least, what score would you give it?
Oh, I give it a 10.
Yeah,
easily. What about you?
I think it might be more of like an 8 for me. I don't know if I said this last time. It's the most anime game I've ever played, I think, in terms of combat, of just like replicating how I feel like anime fights are often represented, without feeling like, God, how to put it, like being overly self-aware. Like it feels justified in the game world. And I think that was cool too. Just like the way dodges work and stuff. I'm like, oh man, this is like, you know, it's almost like how I'd imagine a Dragon Ball Z fight should go, with less like beam fights, you know. That felt really cool. That's something that struck me immediately. But yeah, overall it's super solid. You know, maybe if I played it again after I played Replicant and I tried to go through it, and also, you know, I'm going to have to if I ever want to play again. I can't go back to my save file now because that's
Replicant's probably more grounded, I think.
Cool. Yeah, so maybe it'll be recontextualized once I've played Replicant, and I can try and play through it all in like not one sitting, but like, you know, one contiguous series of play sessions. And it'll be a 10 for me at it then. But even as it is, with as disjointed as my playthrough was, I still thought it was.
What's a 9 for you?
It's pretty incredible.
Like, what's a game that's a 9?
Okay, we have very different tastes here, but like, I'd say Last of Us 1.
Can you give me an 8, 9, and 10?
Part 2 is a 10. Okay, 8 is. Oh man, off the top of my head. Okay, I really favor like story-based games, so an 8 might be like maybe Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, really?
Would be like, I don't know. I feel like
actually no, that makes sense. I would give I would give Ghost an 8. Like yeah,
and then like a 9 would be like Last of Us Part 1 or God of War, and
really,
10 is like Last of Us Part 2 for me, or. I mean, and that's just like thinking like story wise, like gameplay and stuff too. If I'm considering that, like I also consider probably BioShock Infinite would be a 9. I'd say that Bloodborne's a 10.
Wow,
Sekiro
really
would be a 9 or a 10. Yeah, I love Bloodborne. Bloodborne is up there with like Last of Us is like some of my favorite games. BioShock 1 and 2 are definitely like 9s probably. I mean, BioShock 1 and Infinite are definitely 9s, 9s or 10s.
Yeah.
We'll get into a full list at some point. It's hard to say off the top of my head. Yeah, it's they're pretty impressive. It's overall. It's those are ones that have like really stuck with me too. Like I said, like I didn't want to play games for a while after playing Last of Us Part 2 because I was like, how can anything match up to this? I'm like, I'm okay taking a break for a while from video games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think this feels like a natural stopping point for us this episode, and we'll come back soon. I am planning on doing an episode soon with my friend Jess. She and we both finished the manga for Attack on Titan, so I think we're gonna want to talk about that. Dan, you'd be welcome, but you're not really up to date on all that, right?
I watched one season and then never after that.
The anime's pretty good. The manga's solid too. The ending has been controversial, to say the least. It's not quite on the level of Game of Thrones. It doesn't have the same cultural presence as Game of Thrones, but there's a similar reaction within the fan base. There is the Free Folk equivalent of Free Folk for Game of Thrones. It's called Titan Folk, and they hated it. And whereas the mainstream subreddits were more favorable towards
what
it.
did it just came out, the ending?
The ending came out earlier this month, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, so
like
it's
2 weeks
really
ago now?
new.
A week ago, yeah.
Can you tell me the ending? After we're done.
Oh yeah, totally. It's so that might be coming up, and then at some point I think we should do we're in an episode where we get the homie Anant on. You might be listening right now. Sub, you're gonna be in here soon.
Let's do a top 10 list.
Yeah, that might be a clean one. I was thinking like that, and like when we eventually do like our Resident Evil retrospective too, might be a good one. And we get Brady in on that one too. But yeah, anyways, thanks for listening as always, guys. We really appreciate it. Thanks for your support. If you enjoy it, it makes a big difference to us if you guys, just give it a rating on whatever podcast platform you're on, recommend it to a friend. But most importantly, we're just happy if you listen. So thanks for doing that as always. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. You have anything you want to say, Dan, before you head out?
Hit the like button, subscribe. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have more that you guys enjoy going forward. See you next time.